The OPD has turned to William Bratton, a former police chief who is often credited with reducing crime in Los Angeles and New York. But some civil rights groups are critical of his tactics. He will make his first official boots on the ground visit to Oakland early next month. The city retained him as part of a $250,000 contract with his consulting firm. Earlier today, I spoke with Bill Bratton. He says he needs to assess the situation firsthand before offering any specific prescriptions for Oakland. But there are lessons to be learned from other cities. He joined us from New York. William Bratton, thank you so much for coming in and to talk with us today. As you know, the last time America had a very serious gun control debate was in the early 1990s. Of course, you were chief of police in the New York City area, and that was followed by a 2 decades decline in crime. And so I was hoping we could begin by having you put that decline in crime in context.
The investment in the 90s was 100,000 additional police were hired. Additional money went into research, into prisons, into rehabilitation efforts. Research was critical. There was the assault weapons ban on certain types of assault weapons. The impact of that particular piece of the legislation is still being debated. Some studies indicate it had an impact, some studies indicated it did not. From my own perspective, I look at every life saved is a plus. Every incident that didn't occur is a plus. It is quite clear that hundreds of thousands of individuals who did not get access to those type weapons, that clearly there would have been incidents that would have occurred with those weapons but for that intervention.
What is your feeling about what President Obama has proposed?
The new initiative by the president has a number of elements. One is a significant expansion of the requirement for background screening. Right now, 40% of the weapons purchased in the United States are bought at gun shows. Congress deliberately excluded them from the background check provision. And so many of the guns, I believe the majority of guns used in crimes today, many of them come from that one particular source. So closing that loophole would go a long way toward reducing illegal firearms or firearms of any type in the hands of the criminal population. Second initiative is the idea of changing the magazine clips that fit into many of these weapons so that they can only hold a certain number of rounds, as yet undetermined. I think that would be beneficial because when an individual has to change a clip during the course of one of these mass shootings, that presents an opportunity to interrupt that behavior. A third initiative that is being made is, once again, a ban on assault weapons. I happen to think that one is not likely to pass. It's unfortunate, but I just don't think, despite all the rhetoric, it's going to pass. The fourth one, which is very important also, is additional efforts dealing with the mentally ill. That in so many of these instances, it is quite clear that the shooters, if you will, are dealing with significant mental issues, mental incapacity, and there's so much more that we can do in dealing with that particular part of the population. We can do a much better job preventing people from getting guns, whether mentally incapacitated or criminals from getting easy access through gun shows. And then on the reactive side, we also have the ability, if you commit a crime with a gun, and you're not significantly mentally incapacitated, where you're going to go off to a mental facility, you go to jail. You go to jail for a significant period of time. That's what worked in the 90s and continuing in the 21st century in the significant reduction in crime. We focused on prevention and focused on those who were committing the crimes.
So that leads me to the question I must ask about stop and frisk. And I think you prefer stop, question, and frisk.
I was just going to correct you there, young lady, on that. That everybody likes to leave out the middle part of that. It's a three-part process.
Say why you think so. And I know you don't want to speak specifically about Oakland, but in most urban centers, there's some tension on stop and frisk. How do you address that concern, and why do you think it's a policy that works, an applicable tool?
It is a constitutionally protected activity by police. Challenge for police is to do it legally, compassionately, consistently, not just in poor neighborhoods, not just in minority neighborhoods. And that is the issue, unfortunately, around the country, because that's where it is most frequently used, because unfortunately, that is where the majority of crime, both serious and minor, is committed. That's the reality of our lives, our society. It is an essential tool of policing. Can police be better trained, supervised, and monitored? I think they can. But those that are advocating that it be done away with or representing that it can be done away with, I'm sorry that you do away with it and you're going to have your cities overrun with crime, because it is the basic tool that every police department in America uses.
When you come into a major metropolitan area to consult, what are you looking for? What do you take stock of when you assess a situation, a crisis situation like the one that city officials are facing?
I won't speak to the Oakland situation. That not been there yet. In the case of consultancies, you're usually brought in to do a specific assignment. So depending on what the individual city's issues are, and in my case as a consultant, what they're looking for us to do, it's all about diagnosing the illness and then taking your experience, what's worked elsewhere that might be applicable for your particular client or patient. This stuff is not rocket science. This is, for 40 years I've been doing it, and I think for 40 years pretty successfully. And that's good news, because it is replicable, it is transferable, it is modifiable.
All right, well, William Bratton, we thank you very much for your time, and we wish you all the best in Oakland.
Jamie, great to be with you. All the best.